How do we know that Islam is the right religion? Often science facts are put forward, but what is the proof of one God? How does it prove Islam? Now look, this is not, as I said, this is very difficult to try to explain this in a short amount of time, because when you're trying to prove God to somebody, there are many different ways of you proving God, and no one of them works all the time. The reason is that God is a very complex idea. The belief in God is a very complex idea, and different people have different reasons of why they have a problem with accepting God. Some people have a spiritual problem. Some people have a scientific challenge in this regard. So for different people, it's different reasons. For a lot of people, the reason why they've stopped believing in God is because they've had a bad experience. Because their parents maybe, or a teacher was abusive, very cultural. And they would mask their culture in religion and say, this is religion. But it was not. It was Somali culture. It was Punjabi culture. It was Gujarati culture, whatever it is. So the child doesn't understand, the young man, young woman now does not know what is culture, what is Islam. To be honest, the response to this would be that if there are certain there are certain theories, certain ideas that make us doubt the existence of God, then the reason they were creating doubt in us is because we are looking into them as a doubt creating aspect. And then we're not looking for a response. Our studies about Islam, if you just read the Quran with a good thought and reflection, and look at some of the tafsirs and the hadith, and some of the aqidah, the belief works, that will give a good amount of reassurance. Problem is that we're being exposed to a number of atheistic ideas, because currently these few decades, the last 2 decades or so, this is the first time in history that we've had overt atheism. Before, atheism was always hidden, but because of Dawkins and Sam Harris and other Christopher Hitchens of the last, who are very eloquent speakers, they've caused a lot of people to doubt, because a lot of these people don't have understanding of their religion, but they listen to these things because this becomes popular discourse. And a lot of people are too lazy to go and find out. And when they do come to the masjid, many of those people responsible in the masjid, even some imams, they're not able to respond properly. So that's why I'm saying that it's a very complex kind of scenario, but the answers are all there. So that's why what we want to do is we want to deal with this in more detail as to what the issue is. Now, how do we know Islam is a true religion? I mean, the way I would say, for me, because I was born in a Muslim household, so it was easier. However, when I became mature, started thinking about things, making decisions for myself, then I adopted Islam now on a acquisitional level. It wasn't just because I was born into the faith. That helped me, obviously. But I became curious. What does Islam say about this? What does Islam say about that? So for example, for me, if there's any religion, it needs to be able to answer many, many things. And I put that down into 5 dimensions. A religion should not just be about worshipping God, like rituals. That's not what the only thing a religion should provide. That's one aspect. A religion needs to provide, first dimension, belief. How do I see things? What is the purpose of this life? What is my outlook? Do jinn, do angels exist? What does Islam say about these different things? Number 1. Once you've recognized the God, which Islam explains through the Quran and Sunnah, then the second thing is, how do you worship this God? So the second dimension is worship. First one is doctrine, second one is worship. Number 3, a religion also needs to tell you how to act, interact, both on a transactional level, and also on a social level. How do I deal with my neighbors? How do I deal with the environment, green rights and so on, right? Animal rights. How do I deal with disputes? All of that is third and fourth dimension, the transactions and the mu'asharat. And then finally, the 5th one is, how am I supposed to have my outlook? How do I deal with enmity? How do I deal with feeling of hatred? How do I deal with jealousy? So Islam deals with all of that. Now there's some rich teachings of all of these things in the Quran that we need to access, and there's books written about that, and there's lectures on these things. This gives us a thorough understanding. So for me, it just solidified my belief that Islam, I'm satisfied with it because it answers all of these questions. So how do you know Islam is the right religion? You look into it, and then you have to understand what matters to you personally, and you look for those particular points. And that is how generally you understand that. Proof of God, many different types of proof of God. It's just, what kind of proof are we looking for right now? You know, through science, through what do you call it, cosmology, the cosmological proof of God, the teleological proof. There's so many different ways. The logical aspect. I mean, I can tell you one, it might sound boring, but basically, we all come from something. Everybody's caused by something, right? Now, when you keep going up, eventually you'll get to the first cause, God. Now, if you want to keep going back, that okay, if everybody's created, everything is created by something else, then who created God? The Prophet ﷺ said, if you get to that level, you need to say A'udhu Billah, and you need to just say, I believe in Allah. But let's just entertain that question, that if you say, who created God? One option is, God 2 created God 1. You have to go back somewhere, you have to stop somewhere. If you say it was all Big Bang, who created the Big Bang? Who set up the Big Bang? Because if you look at the design of the world, it is virtually impossible that it just happened randomly, because the random possibility is so minute. It's like I take a bucket of letters, you know, Scrabble letters, just letters, and it's got 300 letters in there, and I throw it out. And what are the chances that it will say Bergen is a beautiful city? What are the chances that it would fall in that particular way to say Bergen is a beautiful city? Tell me, what do you think is the probability here? Now it'd be some crazy probability, the 0.0, you know. That is what we're saying. That's what the scientists are saying, that this is how this world came up. Not all scientists, by the way. Scientists represent believers and non-believers in the same way that the general population does. This was a study that was done in Harvard or somewhere like that. Okay, so essentially we need to be as critical of the atheistic theories as we are of religion, if you want to be critical. And you will find that at the end of the day, it's just another claim. I would rather have a claim that works for me for the hereafter as well, and that's just not limited to this world, because at least then I'm prepared for that. If you just want to go purely on an objective way. Anyway, I'm going to have to stop here for a